If your hair feels dry, fragile, or like it's constantly breaking, it may not be your products. It could be your daily habits. So, habit number one is tight hairstyles, especially daily. I was notorious for doing really sleek, tight buns and ponytails. I learned this one the hard way. But after postpartum and as I was evolving in my hair health journey, I started realizing how much tension that was putting at my hairline. And all of the constant tension that I was putting at my roots was just causing stress over time. That stress is not always immediate, but it builds up, especially like I said, if you're doing these hairstyles every single day. So now what I do is I focus a lot more on how a hairstyle feels, not always how it looks, although I definitely care about how it looks. I just care a little bit more about how it feels now. So one thing I like to do instead is the same ponytail, just a little bit more loose or a lot more loose in my case. And when I am doing a bun, I'm just careful of how I'm twisting it. If I'm doing a twist or a braid, it's not super tight. I'm allowing space for my hair to breathe. And one thing I also do is I change the placement of my hairstyles. So, for example, I tend to wear my hair up like 80-90% of the time. So, if I'm doing a low bun, I'll do a mid bun the next day or like a higher ponytail. And of course, I'm not yanking or really pulling at my scalp. I'm tightening it enough to where it doesn't fall out, but also to where it's not hurting or giving me any type of headache. The switching placements of your hair just gives breaks for your hair and it just allows it to breathe. Habit number two is rough detangling. I am so guilty of this one. I used to speed through brushing my hair like Target was about to close or something. I don't recommend rushing through detangling your hair. Hair is a lot more fragile than we think, especially when it's dry. So when you're pulling through your hair and you're kind of stuck at a knot, you're not detangling, you're snapping it. Now what I like to do is take a more gentle approach. I always section or divide my hair into three or four, and then I always start at the bottom and then slowly work my way up, taking those tangles out as I go. And this is one of those things where you want to be patient, give yourself a little bit more time. In the long run, it will be worth the extra few minutes that you give just with being gentle and treating your hair well. Also, add a little bit of moisture if you need to, whether that is a leave-in conditioner or some type of hair oil. Put that in, it makes the hair brushing a lot easier. And that leads us to the next habit number three, skipping moisture before styling. What I mean by this one is I used to just throw my hair into whatever hairstyle without first thinking about the condition of my hair. So dry hair plus styling equals more friction, which equals breakage. Even protective hairstyles can kind of not really be protective if your hair underneath is not being well taken care of. These protective hairstyles only work if your hair is actually being cared for underneath. So what you want to do is just add a light moisture to your hair. Again, whether that's a light leave-in or a hair oil or a cream, it doesn't have to be a full-on routine, just enough to give it a little bit of moisture so your hair isn't dry and brittle. What I'm not saying is to style hair soaking wet because we kind of have all heard that wet hair is fragile hair. And yes, that is 100% true. When it's wet, it's flexible, it's stretchy, it's easier to snap. But also, styling dry, brittle hair creates friction, which can also cause breakage. The goal isn't soaking wet hair, it's a slightly moisturized, flexible hair, so it can handle styling without it snapping. Healthy styling is controlled moisture plus gentle handling. So people tend to say don't style wet hair, but styling dry hair might be worse. When hair is soaking wet, the internal structure is temporarily weakened. it stretches a little bit too much, and when you pull on it, it can overstretch and snap. That's why aggressive brushing on soaking wet hair can equal damage. When your hair is dry, there's more friction between strands. Hair is less flexible, it snags, catches, and snaps easier when manipulated. So when you brush it or when you're pulling it into a tight hairstyle, whether that's a braid, a tight twist, or you're securing with an elastic, you're creating tension and friction on already stiff hair. And that's where breakage tends to happen. So, kind of depending on what you're doing, either one can cause breakage because true wet hair is more fragile and dry hair is more breakage prone during styling. So, again, the goal is a little bit of moisture just so your hair has some flexibility. On to habit number 4, and this one is sleeping without protecting your hair. I also am guilty of this one. For the longest time, I used to sleep with whatever cheap pillowcase, and that is definitely not the case anymore, as I have seen results with simply switching out my pillowcases. I shared this in another video, and I talked about silk pillowcases and how those have just completely changed my hair and even my skin situation. And this one I feel like is definitely big for me because I just did not realize how much damage was happening overnight. And that was just friction from my old pillowcases, my hair rubbing, tangling, and drying out. So I would go to bed with my hair looking fine and then waking up to a ton of tangles and just dryness. Bad situation. But once I started protecting my hair at night, that is when my hair just was like, I love you. Thank you for taking care of me. And I noticed a huge difference very quickly. So if you take anything from any of these, I would start here because most of us sleep at least 7 hours a night, and 7 hours is a long time to just to let your hair be wild. So what you want to do instead, if you don't have a silk pillowcase or even a satin pillowcase, try a satin or silk bonnet. Put your hair into a loose bun, a loose braid, just something comfortable that will allow you to sleep through the night. You don't want really tight tension on your hair. Just give your hair a break, give it some room to breathe. The last habit, habit number 5, is over manipulating your hair. And this is just one of those habits that I really didn't realize was causing breakage until I started trying a style and then letting my hair be. Before, I'd be constantly fixing it, redoing it, touching it, and just causing stress on my hair all day. But the more we handle our hair, the more stress we put on it. So it's kind of one of those things where when you do a hairstyle, we want to try our best to get it right. I know that that's not always the case, especially when we're learning a new style. Sometimes it does take a few times to get it right. I 100% know this to be true for me, but as best as you can, do the hairstyle and just let your hair be. Sometimes that's the best thing we can do for it. I'm all for trying new hairstyles. I love trying new hairstyles, but also be mindful of that moisture situation that we were talking about in habit number 3. Add a little bit of moisture. Make sure that it's not bone dry or soaking wet hair. Find that happy middle with a light leave-in, some type of cream or oil. Again, just to help give your hair that flexibility that it needs so it's not snapping or anything tragic is happening during the styling. I used to think that I needed better products, but what I really needed was better habits. A lot of hair breakage comes from small habits that we don't even think about, but once you start changing them, it really does start to add up. I'll see you all next Saturday.